Hello, welcome. Come on in, everybody. Where are you from? Let me know in the comments. Let's make sure that you can hear me okay, that you can see me okay. If you're on the live stream, welcome, welcome. Glad to have you. Finally back from my trips. I feel like I've been on vacation for like years. It's really been like 3 weeks, but it's good to be back. I do have COVID, but it's pretty mild. Second time I've had it this year, and thankfully, I only had fever for like a day and a half. So no more fever, feeling better, definitely. Probably at 85, 90%. Chest feels a little bit heavy, and the breathing's okay. It's just I get a little tired, but it is what it is. But I feel much better, and I'm very happy to be with y'all. A lot to talk about on today's stream, obviously, as you guys may already know. We had some crazy events happening in the last few hours here in the last 24 hours with Elon Musk announcing that he's going to terminate that he's looking to terminate the Twitter deal. And so what I would love to do is sit down with our amazing community here today and figure out what the hell is going to happen next. Okay, this is what these community sort of live streams are for, where we can all sit down and be super really just sit down and go through ideas and try to figure out what are the obvious next steps here. And, I can start with sharing my thoughts first. But before I even say that, in order to make this as interactive as humanly possible, one of the things that we tried not too long ago was to bring viewers live onto the live stream to ask questions or to share a thought. So as professional as we are now with these captions down below, if you do want to join the live stream at any point, I have a link to join the live stream in the description. You're more than welcome to click on that link and then jump on with me and ask a question or share a thought live about the topic that we're discussing. The only thing I would require is that you have a camera on your side so we can see each other, and that the live stream can see you as well, and to also have decent audio. You don't need a professional microphone, but just something that doesn't echo and just sounds decent overall. Even AirPods usually do pretty well, or something similar. So anyway, let's get started. So actually, before we even do that, we have a bunch of people in the comments already. We got people from Atlanta, we got people from San Diego, we got people from Scotland, Zurich, Germany, Cape Cod. We just got people from, I love these streams. There's literally global representation here. I love it. We got people from the USA, San Francisco, Tacoma, Scranton. Best show ever. Best show ever is from that city. Haha. Anybody thinking about starting a company competing Twitter? I don't know, man. I feel like that might be part of the strategy here. Anyway, let me go ahead and name a couple more here before we get started. Sweden, Honolulu, Ola, and we got folks from Ukraine. Stand strong, my friends. All right. Then we got people from Mars. Obviously. Okay. So the really interesting thing about this announcement from Elon is that from at least from what I was reading and from some of the research that I've done, it did look like the deal was looking to be finalized sometime at the end of July or early August, okay? And the timing of his announcement of terminating the deal is peculiar because it's a few weeks out from that date, right? And it's a few weeks after, really like 1 or 2 weeks after Twitter provided him the necessary data, right? The fire hose of data for Elon to go in and really decide on his own, right, from his standpoint, if it made sense for, if the bot figure made sense from his standpoint, right, that Twitter wasn't falsifying information. And then a couple weeks after, we get a termination notice from Elon. Now, it's no secret that when Elon announced the purchase of Twitter, Twitter's stock price went up quite a bit. So let's look at what that did real quick, right? So if I remember how to use technology and I know how to use my computer, which sometimes is not the case, let's pull up Twitter's stock price, and let me go ahead and share my screen so you all can see what I'm talking about. Transitions. Wow. Okay, let's pull up Twitter's stock chart. Again, this is just for fun, right? This is not investment advice. I'm not trying to be an oracle of people in investing or not investing. I just like exploring topics, and I like to do it in a community basis, right? So if anybody has any thoughts, obviously drop them in the comments. Like I said before, if you want to join the live stream and ask a question, I have a link to do that in the description. So when Elon announced that he is looking to buy Twitter, the stock, which was around April 1st, haha, could this whole thing been a joke? Some might ask. The stock price went from, what was it, 30 some odd dollars, $39, essentially to a peak of, call it 54, right? Which is right about the purchase price that Elon proposed. And then since then, the stock has been sort of on a decline ever since the sort of market started feeling like the deal might be in jeopardy because of Elon's questioning about the bots and the fact that the entire stock market was taking a dump and that $44 billion price tag for the stock, for the company, was likely to be much higher than what it's actually valued at fair market price, right? So you have this gigantic slide from $54 at its peak, which it hit for a brief amount of time, down to $36 at closing yesterday on Friday, and it's now down to $35 in the aftermarket. Okay, so it's down somewhere around here. If you can see my cursor, right down here, somewhere around here. Okay, so what's interesting about the deal that Elon proposed, it was at that $44 billion price tag. What I'm curious to hear from you guys is like, okay, so how does he renegotiate that deal? Let's say he's doing this to renegotiate the deal. Would he possibly be able to renegotiate the deal down from $44 billion? You know, given that the market as a whole is repricing public companies, unless he terminated and tried to go into a new deal. So that's one option, right? That this could be a renegotiation tactic that Elon's using. Kind of brutal, but that could be it, right? So that's one option. The other option is that the fire hose of data that he got from Twitter was much more revealing than potentially originally thought. And there could have been some backdoor conversations between Elon and the Twitter team that maybe made Elon uncomfortable. And he's like, you know what? This is like way higher than the 5% number you guys were telling me. No deal. I'm backing out. This is not good. And I'm just going to list whatever excuses I'm going to list on the disagreement or the announcement that I'm going to pull out from the deal. And then the third one could be the one that's actually literally stated on the reason why he's pulling out of the deal is because he feels like Twitter is in breach of contract, essentially, and isn't being open and transparent about really sharing the information that they said they were going to back up the public information that they've put out there. So I tend to think it's probably the first one. I think it's good. It's a matter of renegotiation, and let me kind of walk you through why. I'm trying to think back to the last time Elon has been in a position where he's been very open and sort of very, say, passionate about a topic or a mission that he's going after, and then not follow through with that premise. Okay, so Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, Boring Company, Solar City when it existed and it was brought into Tesla. The Hyperloop, which is really a Boring Company extension, right? There's a bunch of different examples we can draw from that. Elon set on a goal and he's like, hey, I really feel like this is important, so I'm going to do it, and then he does it. In this case, if he really does back out of the Twitter deal, I think this will be, and he says, you know what, I'm going to move on from the social media stuff after being so vocal and adamant about how important free speech is to the fabric of civilization. Okay, I would find it very, very odd for him to pull out entirely from the deal. We'll probably get confirmation of such thing if Elon does end up selling all his Twitter shares, which is something that has been shared on Twitter pretty often as of late here. And especially, I think I heard it first from Gary Black, but it makes sense. If he sells his Twitter shares, then he has obviously zero incentive for really taking on the company and making it more valuable. So all in all, it's probably, in my opinion, a renegotiation tactic because I do think he's very passionate about the mission. I think he believes in the product. I think that he believes that Twitter is mismanaged, and that's why it's not reaching its true potential. If you really think about the true potential of Twitter, especially as, say, like a YouTube competitor or some sort of true media company competitor, you think about the potential there is pretty mind-blowing. So I find it pretty strange that he would just not take it on after all the effort he's put in so far, okay? And the money that he's been willing to put forward to buy the company. Now, I could be 100% wrong, right? I could be 100% wrong. The other option that has been floated around is that maybe after all this effort and time, he feels that, you know what, buying Twitter was okay, maybe not the smartest thing within the context of having a true open social media company. Maybe it just makes sense for me to start one from scratch, because from what I'm seeing so far, it's going to be more effort to fix this thing than to start something from scratch. Now, the questions of network effects come in at that point, because really the main reason why social media companies are so valuable in the first place is not necessarily because of the service or product that they offer. It's the network effects. It's how many users they have on the platform that use the platform, right? It's a compounding sort of exponential force that the more users you have, the more content you have, which brings on more users, which create more content, which brings on more users, right? You can kind of see how this flywheel works. And maybe $44 billion invested in Twitter is cheaper, I say at the point $44 billion, it's cheaper than spending $44 billion to start your brand new social media company that's likely to have much less users on that and able to generate way less, say, revenue, or have a smaller overall impact to the freedom of speech and discourse that would exist in a specific country or jurisdiction or whatever. So it's really interesting. It's a really interesting sort of thing that has happened here. But the one thing that I think Elon has proven in the past is that if he's one thing, is that he's a sort of a master negotiator, if you really think about it. Fremont, when he initially bought that plant, he did that during the Great Recession back in 2008, 2009 period. I think it was 2008 when he bought Fremont. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. We bought it for like, what, 20 million, 40 million? Like pennies on the dollar. It was a failed, I think, GM-Toyota partnership, the Numni plant. I think it was GM-Toyota. Or GM and Honda, I forget which two automakers, but it was a failed plant, and that collapsed during the Great Recession, and he bought it on pennies on the dollar. Take somebody who's very smart negotiating prices or finding the right opportunity. The fact that he has the first wholly owned American company in China, in Tesla, the first industrial company in China that can claim that, takes a master negotiator. And many other examples, I think probably smaller than those. But those two things really stick out to me. So, and I think the way Elon thinks about problems too, from a first principles perspective, I think maybe unorthodox or sort of specific types of approaching a problem that maybe some of us are afraid to do, or don't think about as a potential sort of lever or variable that we can use to our advantage. I think someone like an Elon is capable of finding those variables and then using them to his advantage. And in this case, walking away from a $44 billion deal with the risk of a lawsuit and being out $1 billion, to him, potentially probably sees it as really a leverage move, because if you look at the stock price now versus when he was going to buy it, he can very easily make the point to the Twitter board and the Twitter folks that are looking to potentially walk away from the deal or allow him to walk away from the deal, let's say. He can very easily say, like, cool, okay, so you want me to force me to pay $44 billion? Okay, take me to court, see how you lose, because there's $1 billion sort of clause for me to walk away. Or we can just sit down and renegotiate this damn thing, sell it to me for $30 billion or $35 billion or whatever the number is, or whatever equates to $34 a share. Just call it a day. Let's just move on, right? Let's move on. Sell me the company for the correct price that the market deems now, and then we can all be okay. Because now that I've pulled this move of walking away, you can clearly see that this company is much more valuable with me on it than me not on it. And if you really want to make money on this thing versus it just dying off in 3 to 5 years, just freaking sell it to me for the correct price, which is, I don't know, 30 billion. Let's just pull something out of our butts, right? So let me know your thoughts. I just brain dumped on you for the last 15 minutes. Sorry. Let me know your thoughts. I'm going to read some comments. And again, if you do have any questions that you would like or want to share your thoughts live, if you want to come on the live stream and do that, I've just posted the link on the comments section, and I also have a link for that in the description below. So let's go ahead and read some comments here. So we have a comment here. I think Elon firmly decided not to buy it, period. No more change. Okay. I disagree, but definitely respect the opinion. We have another comment here from Ferdinand. He's not going to walk away from social media. He's going to start up his own. Twitter offer was impulsive and should not have been done. Yeah, I've heard that opinion as well. I think it's a fair statement to say that Elon can sometimes be impulsive. I think his previous Twitter comments are proof of that in some way. But I don't know if $44 billion deal would be impulsive. I believe that he probably would have thought about it for a little bit more than a few minutes, let's say. And that there was a lot of there was a strategy behind it, I think, at that point. I mean, this whole thing could have been strategized to come to this point. I have no freaking idea. Maybe the $44 billion was a way for him to just like lock down the Twitter execs and the board and ensure that everybody's like dead set to make the deal happen. And then when he knew the market was going to be in the crapper, he would be like, sell it to me for cheaper versus going to them at a cheaper price to begin with and potentially getting brushed off. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows with this guy? You know what I'm saying? Who knows with this guy? I don't really know. DRK comes on the streams all the time, bro. Really appreciate your support. Thank you very much. I think Twitter is hiding a lot and they either can't prove their number or they know they are hiding and the SEC should have a chat with them. That's another thing that I've seen, and I think Twitter is in a difficult spot. Like, I do feel for them if you really think about it. You know, you think about the amount of bot and spam a global social media site would get. It's probably staggering, like just such an ungodly amount of crap probably flows through those servers that it's incomprehensible. Like, none of us can probably sit down and truly understand the amount of garbage that has to be sifted out of those systems. So I get it if it's difficult, but here's the deal. Like, difficult doesn't mean that it's impossible, right? And difficult doesn't mean that we shouldn't do our absolute best to get it down to, say, the true 5% or less, right? Now, who am I to say that? I'm not a software engineer and I'm not an AI expert, so shame on me for saying that, but I think if there are people out there that are confident that can get it down, and in this case, if it's someone like an Elon who has a proven track record of fixing stuff and making really big challenges work, then maybe it makes sense to let him do it. I don't know. Question from Mark: why Gary Black opined this is a 10% spike in Tesla? Yeah, so I think that because Gary said that the reason why Tesla has been down is because there's been a drag from the Twitter deal because, you know, Elon has had to sell some shares, and that Elon's distracted. You know, it's going to be distracted from Tesla, so on and so forth. So I'm not sure if I agree with that, but yeah. Impulsive was the Bitcoin purchase. I don't know. I thought that was a good deal. I think they should buy more. Controversial statement. I'll keep it to myself, but yeah. It's interesting. Another comment here. Twitter has serious problems. Business advertising in there. I do not get enough clicks per dollar spent there. Compare like in Facebook, Google. I only have a few data points. Definitely not worth $44 billion at the moment. Yeah, I can speak to this from experience. My wife and I own an escape room business in Pennsylvania for 4 years, and we use social media to advertise. And we use Google AdWords. We used Facebook ads. We used Twitter ads. We used LinkedIn. And by far the most effective ones, the ones that we got the best bang for our bucks for, by far, were Google and Facebook. Especially Facebook. Facebook was very good for that platform. Twitter it was like a casino. Like you had no idea what the hell it was going to do. And some of that could have been because of the bots, to be honest. I mean, if you're trying to push ads to people that you think are human beings, but they aren't, and you think that the $30 or $50 you're spending on that day's campaign to try and get people in your door is being viewed by a bunch of bots that have literally no interest, that are incapable of having an interest to go in your escape room, right? That's a very tough thing for an advertiser to swallow, right? Or for somebody who wants to use the platform to push ads to actually want to do. So, I mean, we decided to stop advertising on Twitter pretty early on because we saw very little results. I don't know if anybody else has had experience with that too, and it looks like Lufti has a anecdotal experience, but I can back that up, man. It was not a fun experience advertising on Twitter. It was not. I don't know if he needs it all for AI, but I think his stated goals were exactly that: free speech and preserving democracy in the world. This is a reply to a previous comment that Sipe Hill posted. And then let's go back to that one. So my initial thought was he would buy Twitter for some inside interaction between humans, but is it really that important for his AGI goals? I mean, yeah. So that was in reply to that. Awesome. So the bots on YouTube are bad enough and getting more sophisticated, so imagine Twitter. Right. Yeah, because YouTube bots are the bane of my existence as a YouTuber. I hate them so much. And when I came on this live stream platform, which I really enjoy doing, I noticed that everybody's real. And then, excuse me, COVID. Oh my God. Going to TeslaCon was even more mind-blowing in Giga Texas because I actually saw your faces. It was amazing. It was amazing. We have a lot of shy people today. Nobody's coming on to say hi. Let me post the link again. It's okay. It's a lot less scary than you think. It's a lot less scary than you think. If you do want to ask a question live, I posted a link in the comment. Definitely feel free to come on. You don't have to, but you're definitely welcome to. I missed you at TeslaCon. Yeah, man, it's a shame we couldn't see each other, but I'm in Austin, so I'm sure we'll run into each other at some point. Oh man, yeah, it's been a. I really am convinced that this is negotiating tactic. I really am convinced. I really, really am convinced. Mark says, "I'm sorry, I'm late. Greetings from London." No problem, Mark. It's all good. No one's late to these live streams. There's no such thing as late. You know what they say? Wizard is never late. A wizard is never late. All right, we have a user on. Let's make sure. Let's see if the camera works. Oh, he just jumped off. I think he probably forgot to allow his permission access on his browser. We have an interesting question here. When will the Model 3 price drop? I mean, that's a good question, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if it drops later this year, to be honest. I think Q3, Q4, it might make sense. What a horrible photo of Elon for starting your video. I thought you were going to make fun of him. I would never. Was that really a horrible picture of him? It was just I found one of him shrugging on Twitter or shrugging on YouTube or Google, and then he was just raising his hand like this. I'm like, I'm going to put the Twitter picture there. Sorry. Sorry, Elon, if you're offended by that picture. It wasn't my intention. I promise. We have another comment here. My guess is Elon thought My guess is Elon thought it through thoroughly. Wow. Let me read that again. That is master wordsmithing right there. My guess is Elon thought it through thoroughly before making his offer to Twitter, but now realizes with macro events he can get a much better deal. Yeah, I honestly think that's where he's at. I really do think that's where he's at. I could be 100% wrong, but Drew, I tend to agree with you. I really tend to agree with you. Replied to one of my comments about Twitter advertising. I have heard similar things, that they tried advertising in Twitter once and no results, so they stopped it. Yeah, I would not. If you're in business and you're trying to advertise online, I would strongly advise against using Twitter as an advertising platform from experience. I just didn't find it to be that useful. And it wasn't. And I'm not trying to dog Twitter. It's just speaking from experience, unfortunately. You know? I'm gonna keep this live stream on the shorter side for sure. I'm experimenting with different formats here, and I love to hear your feedback as we go through these, as we have a lot of returning viewers. So thank you very much for coming back on. But I'm thinking about doing more live streams that are sort of shorter in nature, just to kind of test out that format. And I'm constantly trying to harvest ideas and see what works best to convey ideas, what works best to have a good conversation, what works best to sort of sit down and have a good discussion around the topic. Generally with this one, what I would have done is I would have sat down and like pre-recorded the video, packaged it, made it pretty, and then sort of put it out on YouTube. But I find that this streaming platform kind of gives me a lot of flexibility with some of the graphics and stuff and the transitions and whatnot. So so I think that, it's not going to be as sort of like, doesn't have cuts or nothing like that. But I feel like I can still convey my message directly to you guys. And then the interaction aspect of being able to go through comments and read your comments. And if anybody wants to jump on and ask a question or share a thought, I love that part of that interaction. So I think I'm going to try these for a few weeks instead of, excuse me, pre-recording, just going on a live stream and then sharing my thoughts. And then if you guys want to ask questions or interact with me, and then we'll do that. So we'll give it a few more minutes. If anybody has any last questions before we end this one, and then tomorrow we'll have another live stream, and then Monday we'll have another one, and then Tuesday we'll have another one, and then Wednesday we'll have another one, and we'll keep going. So, and then as we go through them, as people come back and sort of go through that experience, do let me know what you think. And if you're viewing this when it wasn't a live stream, obviously these are recorded afterwards, so you can come on and then listen to this after we're off live too. So, yeah. Long live streams are cool on the weekends. Yeah, I think usually we do our live streams, our really long ones, on Wednesday after market close, and then Friday at 11 a.m. But I'm open to changing up formats at all times. So I guess we were wrong thinking it was in the bag. Oh, Hans, what's up, bro? Yeah, I wouldn't be so shocked if it does end up getting done. I really do think it'll still get done. I go back to my initial point of like, I feel like he's been talking way too passionately about the fabric of free speech and civilization and how important it is to ensure we have a open dialogue society, for him to be like, not worth it. I feel like he would put in a lot of effort to make it work, and I see this as a negotiating tactic. But again, I could be 100% wrong. So, all right, we got someone in. We'll ask a few questions, and then we'll go from there. Let's see. Hello, Richard. Can you hear me, my friend?
I can hear you great. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can. How you doing?
Great. I'm good. I'm in California. Yeah, okay. I think it's purely a negotiation. I believe that he was aware of the bot issue when he went in. I think he was aware of the fact that he would come back and use that in the future. And he knows that, legally speaking, that it would be difficult for Twitter to sue for specific performance, which I guess they've asserted. In other words, to enforce the contract. And that if they tried to pursue him for the $1 billion, he would cross-complain against them for fraud anyway. I think that was all baked in. And, if he can get negotiated, I think 30 million is probably the ballpark, 25, 30 billion, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. If he can get that kind of price, then the deal is a good deal. If he can't, then he can use his new litigation team. He's been advertising about that. He was setting up a in-house litigation team. This might be one of the uses of that team.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I see it.
Is that what kind of gives you the confidence that it's sort of that angle? Is it that litigation team, or was that something else that sort of played through?
It was something that was kind of like a side aspect, but it was certainly kind of a change. It seemed to me it was kind of like a change in his personal philosophy. That, he kind of, that was not something that was front and center at the company. It was something new. And I think he recognized the fact that he had to have a strong team and push back.
Okay. Awesome. I didn't even think about that litigation team aspect of it, but I think that makes a lot of sense too. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on and sharing your thoughts, man. Appreciate you.
Great. Have a great weekend, and thanks for
You
your
too,
work.
man. Thank you
Okay.
so
Bye
much.
bye.
Appreciate you.
Sure. Bye bye.
Awesome. That's why I love these. See? Isn't it cool just to talk to people? Why can't we do more of that? Come on, people. Um, I that litigation team aspect is an interesting one, right? I think that the way Richard laid out sort of the back and forth strategy of like how each company would countersue each other based on the sort of steps that he outlined sort of makes a lot of sense from that perspective. And yeah, so curious to see where it goes. I'm curious to see. Brian says I want to come on. Okay. You can go ahead and click on this link, Brian, right here. And you click on this link and then allow your camera and microphone, and then you'll be able to ask a question, and then we'll take it from there. Isn't that a litigation team for Tesla and not for Elon? I think even though it might be under the Tesla umbrella, I don't think it would really, keep them from, using that team for any other Elon-related things, I would say, right? I think it's just more a Elon litigation team that's under the Tesla umbrella, but I don't think there's going to be any sort of like contractual. Like, I'm not a lawyer. I don't freaking know. Are there anybody in the comments? Do let me know. Would there be any limits to a team that's hired by Tesla or whatever to then not be able to be hired for other sort of, aspects of what Elon's trying to get done from that perspective? Let me know if that makes sense. Okay. We'll give it a few more minutes, and then we'll call it a day here. He could contract with the lawyers with Elon paying the fees. There you go. There's Brian. Okay, I need to put some clothes on. All right, hurry up, man. We're about to sign off. That's so funny. Wish we had Tom around for that one. Actually, Tom is coming back on the channel at some point here. I'll share the date once that's live, but he'll be doing a community forum with us, and it'll be a live stream, so we'll be able to sit down and have an open-ended conversation with him. So it's going to be a fun interaction for sure. Elon said he was building a strong lawyer team, so I think he would prepare this lawsuit. Yeah, that litigation team was I'm so glad Richard brought it up because I really wasn't really thinking about it. I really wasn't thinking about it. Is there a big Iranian Tesla community? I only know like 3 Iranians, and one of them is me. So maybe in California? Maybe in California. If there's any Iranians in the chat, let me know. Giga Tehran, yeah. Where's that at? Probably in California somewhere. I wouldn't go live. Am drunk AF. I would definitely advise against it, but I'm not your parent, so I listen. Use your best judgment, okay? I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to judge. All right, Brian's got some clothes on. What's up, man?
This works really well. I'm doing pretty good. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great, man. How can I help you?
Good. So I guess I'm thinking maybe this would be a good thing last. The word of the RoboVan. Like a new segment. And I'm thinking like the timeline of new segments, because I mean, if at this point we know that there's going to be other vehicles coming out, and I just think could be a cool, fun, little game. What's coming after RoboVan, things like that. It does seem like it's every few years. I'm sure if you even threw a timeline, you could probably kind of get a good timeline going and some future prospects.
Sure.
Those kind of things. What do you think about the van and, Cybertruck's almost here? And then with like the new way that they're engineering these things with like the structural battery pack, and then how that's going to also feed down the line of new products as well.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. Thank you for that. I'm super excited for that RoboVan. I do think it's something that makes a ton of sense in a world of autonomy where you have a vehicle that essentially drives for yourself anywhere you go, right? You never have to put the input of driving. But then you also have the variable of space in that vehicle. So like livable space, right? You have or space that you can move around and sit down and maybe just lounge and sleep in or play games in, take a shower in, whatever you want to call it, right? It's basically like a self-driving RV, think it. Like that's how I think about the potential of this sort of product line. And then pairing it with a Starlink, right? So where Elon has talked about, they're already released Starlink for RVs and whatnot. It just seems like there is this entire market for like small, call it mobile homes, call it, that drive themselves, that have internet and enough room for people to kind of just live in, albeit it's going to be very small. But I think there's a market out there of, say, a few million people globally that would love to live that sort of lifestyle where they're just end up anywhere they want. So, yeah,
like,
go ahead.
You're almost describing like a mix of an Airbnb and an Uber.
You got it.
Where it's like a long-term Uber where you could live in this thing for a month or two, maybe get it to, you can pick a destination of where you want it to be, or maybe, a drop-off location. You can travel the country. There's a lot of things in that realm. That's really interesting. And on that note too, do you think that this is showing that Tesla is Tesla done making vehicles based on a human driver? Like, is this it? Is the next smaller vehicle, I think he said the next, the model, whatever 2 or whatever would have no steering wheel. I mean, are we done seeing, vehicles that are really based on a consumer buying it, or a consumer that's going to just drive it?
I don't
and
think
in that case, we're done. I mean, that's bullish for FSD.
Yeah, I'm of the camp that I don't know if we're quite there yet. I think it might be another, say, I'm just going to throw out a number and say maybe another 5 years. And the reason why I say that is because I think there's still a big gap in regulations and, call it, road infrastructures globally that I don't think are going to allow Tesla to be comfortable moving to product lines that are 100% based on autonomy. So, like, for example, in the U.S. is probably going to be much more friendly in allowing FSD to happen versus, say, a Europe, or if you think about some of the infrastructure that's available in continents of South America and Africa and Asia, it's going to be much more difficult to execute, I believe, full self-driving in those areas than, say, in the States, right? And I think with the scale that Tesla is going to achieve with batteries and vehicles and whatnot, and the size of the supply chain they're going to have, if they're only going to limit themselves to just self-driving vehicles for, say, the next 3 to 5 years, I think they'll have a gigantic gap in how many vehicles they can actually get out there to replace the old fleet. So I'm on the camp that I think if they do full self-driving, it's going to be like vehicles. It's going to be in parallel with some products that are still going to be meant to be driven. But
that's my question. Is not really time length, but how many models in between are left. So maybe a smaller model, Cybertruck, Tesla Semi. But even Tesla Semi one day could totally just be something that companies are buying for full self-driving. I just think it's a great brainstorming thing of like, how many more models are we really going to see? Like, if a van comes out, is it going to be mainly van, or is like a passenger van going to come with a steering wheel? Is a smaller, less expensive Model 3 going to come so that it's for a person, or is that one going to be dedicated for robotaxi? And
I would say it's like 5 years worth of models, whatever that is. If that's 2 or 5, I don't know what that is, but like if we're just gonna like spitball here, it's gonna be a smaller Model 3, like the robotaxi equivalent of that smaller car that's gonna be cheaper to own. I mean, Roadster was already announced, obviously, to set Semi and Cybertruck. I think if they do release a van, it's probably, I don't know, I would have to think through that. So definitely at least one more. But I think the way I would think about that is when they go exclusively only new products, full self-driving, like no driver, like not designed for steering wheel, I would garner and say like 2026 and on. I think it's when they really start saying, okay, no more investing time in the freaking steering wheel and pedal. Just go bare bones from this point forward, because we know where we're going. So that's how I think about it. But I could be wrong. I don't know. But that's how I think about it. So great questions. Yeah.
I think thinking of things as model and like timeline of like, planned obsolescence, or what, the other thing they always say, but I can't think about it. That, just how many models they have left between, producing a new one and not making their old one obsolete.
Right.
So anyways, yeah.
Awesome, man. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you coming on. Appreciate your support, man.
Good timing.
Thank you so much. Take it easy, brother.
Peace.
Awesome. Brian's awesome. Brian's been following the channel for a bit. Appreciate you, man. All right. I think that's a good place to end it right there. Great last question. Thank you all very much for joining the stream. We'll be back tomorrow. Like I said before, I'll try to make these into a daily. Oh, we got one more person. We'll squeeze them in. We'll do one more. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello. How you doing?
Hey. Good.
Good to see you.
So I came on because I had a thought the other day that kind of blew my mind, and it was kind of good that you were just talking about FSD. So I'm actually in the beta program. So I've been running that since like the 98 score and seeing it improve and everything. And then I was talking with a coworker a couple days ago, and we were talking about it, and I'm like, yeah, I think I'm generally on the same agreement with Elon that they're going to at least show it'll work by the end of this year, if not, get it running. And we're talking about some more. Then I realized something talking with him. FSD and Robotaxi are two different software. Because one of the fears I have with the FSD is, when it gets me to my apartment complex, it doesn't know how to park, and it's going to take a lot of work to make that work and make it not park in a handicap spot. It doesn't know how to deal with gates. It doesn't know how to deal with all this, these little things. They're going to take a long time. Mapping isn't perfect, all that stuff. But then I realized, wait a minute, Robotaxi doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to, know how to park. It doesn't have to know how to even deal with a gate. It can drop you off in front of your apartment. Because he was like, yeah, when I get Uber, I just get dropped off. I just pick up and drop off in the front of my apartment. I don't go, or I don't have it come, straight to my front door. So I realized there's a lot of things that Robotaxi doesn't have to do that a true FSD that I would want as my own car, right, that will drive and come pick me up and go and park and go and all that kind of stuff. That FSD.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that blew my mind. I realized, wait a minute, it's similar to how Autopilot and FSD are different software. FSD and Robotaxi are different software. And my car with FSD beta as it is now is pretty close to what you would want for just a simple Robotaxi. It'll get me from my work to my house, no problem. It won't get me into my apartment complex, but it could drop me off, somewhere in the front, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of blew my mind when I realized that. I think they might actually be closer to Robotaxi than you would think.
And it makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, that makes a lot of sense, because the one thing that Tesla always talks about is like, if there is a piece of the puzzle that's complicating your solution, what do? You try to throw it out. And so if part of the solution of getting a Robotaxi out the door is to not have to deal with a complicated parking lot, which even human drivers seem to have a very freaking hard time navigating, right? God forbid a robot. So I'd never thought about that. That's a really good point. That's a really good. How confident are you that's the case? What's your confidence level?
So I think it's going to depend on area. So where I am with the FSD beta, it's generally really good now. The 12.2, it had some weird issues
area
at the very
in?
beginning.
Where do you live?
Oh, so I'm in Orange County near Los Angeles in California.
Okay.
And I use it a lot on the weekends. I use it to take me to work all the time. There are definitely still issues. It's not ready for like a Robotaxi yet, but generally they're mostly little issues. Like I'd say the biggest issue I have going to work, I have a right turn that I have to take from a major road to another kind of major road.
Yeah.
And there's two right turn lanes. And if I'm in the left right turn lane, it tries to put me in, if there's no cars, it tries to put me into the right lane in the other road, right? So it tries to change lanes in the middle of a turn. And so that's one of the worst problems I have. But I think that's something similar to the, the blind, the left turn across a road.
Yeah.
I think it's just something they need to work on some more, and they'll get it figured out.
Yeah.
With more training data. Few
But you
other.
sound pretty confident though that it's going to get done.
It's certainly in certain areas. Yeah, definitely.
What
in some
sort of
areas,
timeline are you thinking?
Like I say, I think my guess is that they'll be able to show, like at least to people like us who are really into it, by the end of this year. I think it'll be getting pretty obvious that they'll probably be able to do robotaxi, especially now that I've thought about this whole idea that robotaxi doesn't need to be as advanced as like a full self-driving. It still might take another year before they're truly like releasing robotaxi in more than just small, very small limited trials. But I wouldn't be surprised if a year from now they're either have some small trials going on or are really talking about it, and everyone's like, okay, they're going to do this soon. They're going to do this soon, right?
Yeah. No, I think that also the fact that you put it within that context really sort of helps me think about it much better too, because I put out a video I think a couple months ago now. I forget how long it was, but I was kind of conveying that my confidence for kind of like how you described it, where they'll probably have some form of robotaxi ready by the end of the year in some form that's ready to at least be tested or something. And the signal that I was using to get there was Elon taking on Twitter, Karpathy going on sabbatical, and the fact that I've been a beta tester for a while. I take those 3 data points and I'm like, okay, like why would you say this is the number 1 priority of the company, and then your top 2 leaders that are overseeing the thing are quote unquote distracted on other things, unless like they're confident that it's going to get done when they're saying it's going to get done. So I'm like, okay, so that makes a lot of sense. And the fact that you've contextualized it within the fact that, hey, like a robotaxi doesn't really need to solve for parking lots. It just has to be close enough that it makes sense for a human to jump out and just go to their destination right there. Like it's kind of like last mile without the last 100 feet, call it, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That helps me a lot, and I'm sure people in the comment section will also appreciate that. But thank you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. One other quick comment. I think one of the biggest problems they're going to have is just general when it comes to the full FSD is going to be like mapping.
Okay.
Because like for example, my apartment complex I live in, it tries to go to the middle of the complex when I put in my address, and when you put in addresses for various places, it'll get close, but it won't go to the exact place. So I bet you sometime, my guess would be sometime next year, they're going to really start working on generating maps. Or at least they're probably going to have to, unless whatever mapping software they're using, which seems to have changed recently. I don't know if you noticed. It seemed like sometimes it would map better and sometimes it'd be worse.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
I'm wondering if they're going back and forth. And I think in the lower right corner, it even says what they're using. And I've seen it say Google, and I've seen it say like some open source thing. So I think maps are going to be one of their biggest issues.
I would tend to agree with that too. And I think that they can also handle on an exception basis too. Like they don't have to use their maps for every single situation. I'm sure they can come up with some sort of maybe like a flagging mechanism through the beta that says, hey, like this, whenever I drop off at this destination, it's a hot mess. So we need to create our own map to like locate the actual place where we need to drop off people. But who knows? That might be harder than it sounds. But
but one person did tell me one thing they might do is one advantage they do have is they can get it from the fleet to some degree. So if someone says navigate to this place, even if they're driving wherever they drive to, they could try and use that to learn, hey, that was this address.
Right.
So they do have that advantage there. So
exactly.
I think they'll figure something out.
Yeah, they got the sensors and the data capability to solve it for sure, and that's all that matters ultimately. So thank you so much, man. Thank you for coming on. Appreciate
you. For the live streams and everything. It's been awesome. I've been watching it, I think, since the beginning. So
thank you so much, man. I appreciate your support. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Take it easy. Awesome. I love you guys. I have so much warmth in my body, and it's not because of the hot tea I had earlier, because of your love. Thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate you guys so much. Like, subscribe. Blah, 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 whatever YouTubers say at the end of the video. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, 1 p.m. CST. We'll be talking about a topic that I think it's going to be a little controversial. I think that I personally think Elon Musk and Andrew Yang should team up in some way. And I'm curious to see what sort of conversation we're going to get out of there. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming on. We'll see you tomorrow. Take it easy. Bye-bye.